When he walked into the room where 7 men were beating me, I had no idea that a year later I'd be carrying his child. I had no idea that by morning, every last one of them would be gone. The Christie's auction room glittered like a stage set for a life I was never meant to live. I stood on the rostrum in a $300 black dress, the most expensive thing I owned, and watched the hammer fall one final time. $92 million. Rothko, my sale, my triumph. Applause washed over me, warm and intoxicating. I smiled, nodded, adrenaline thrumming in my temples. This was my night, my proof that a girl from the South Side could play in their league. I didn't yet know that in an hour I'd be bleeding on marble. After the sale, I slipped out the service exit to grab my things. The corridors were empty, staff gone, guests celebrating in the main hall. I was already thinking about tomorrow, how I'd call my mom and tell her the bonus would cover her next round of chemo. "Hey, Sophia Rain." The voice behind me made me turn. Ethan Harper, senator's son. Blonde hair, perfect smile, $15,000 suit. 6 of his friends flanked him. None of them had worked a day in their lives. "Mr. Harper," I forced a professional smile. "Great night, wasn't it?" "Damn right it was." He stepped closer. Something in his eyes made my skin crawl. "We were thinking, you owe us." "Excuse me?" "That Rothko deal." His grin widened. "My father wanted that painting. You ruined his mood. We figured you should make it up to us." My stomach dropped. I was just doing my job. I tried to move past them, but they closed the circle. "Your job?" Ethan grabbed my wrist. "Your job is knowing your place, and it's not here, not with us." They shoved me into a storage room. The door shut. The lock clicked. "Boys, shall we teach her some respect?" Ethan's voice sounded like a verdict. The first punch landed in my gut. I doubled over, gasping. The second split my lip. Blood flooded my mouth, metallic and hot. "Please!" I tried to scream, but a hand clamped over my mouth. "Quiet, sweetheart. We don't want an audience." Hands tore at my dress. Fabric ripped. I scratched, fought, but there were too many of them. "Hold her tighter," Ethan said, unbuckling his belt. Somehow I twisted free, bit down on someone's hand until I tasted blood. A yelp. Their grip loosened. I lunged, not for the exit I came through, but the adjoining room, some kind of coat check. I slammed the door and threw my weight against it. They laughed on the other side. "Come on, Sophia. You're only delaying the inevitable." I slid to the floor, shaking. Blood dripped from my lip onto the ruined dress. My knees wouldn't hold me. One thought only, this is it. The door opened. I didn't even scream, just covered my face waiting for the worst. "Who?" The voice was low, perfectly calm, and somehow colder than anything I'd ever heard. I looked up slowly. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, impeccable dark suit, black hair swept back, a face that could belong to an archangel or the devil, sharp bones, storm gray eyes that held no warmth at all. Lucian Vaughn. I knew him. Everyone did. Collector. Billionaire. The man who could buy anything, including the silence of an entire city. He took in the sight of me, split lip, torn dress, trembling hands, and his jaw flexed. "Who?" he asked again, quiet, emotionless, terrifying. "Nobody." I tried to stand. My legs betrayed me. I just fell. He crouched in front of me, slow, the way you approach a wounded animal. His scent wrapped around me, expensive, woody, cedar, and something darker. Liar. He brushed a thumb across my cheek, wiping away blood. The touch was impossibly gentle. "Don't lie to me, Sophia." He knew my name. "I don't want trouble," I whispered. "Please, just let me go." "Names." He leaned closer until our faces were inches apart. "Give me names and I swear no one will ever touch you again, or anyone else." I should have refused, should have stayed silent. But something in his voice, in the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the universe, broke every defense I had left. Ethan Harper, I breathed, and 6 others. They're still in the building. Lucian straightened, pulled out his phone. One short call. Reese, Christie's service wing. Ethan Harper and 6 with him. Addresses, routes, everything. 15 minutes. He ended the call and looked down at me. Can you stand? I don't know. He offered his hand. I stared at it. Long fingers, Patek Philippe glinting on his wrist, and realized I was about to make a choice that would change everything. I took it. He lifted me like I weighed nothing. For a second, we stood too close. His hand settled on my waist, steadying me. I'm taking you home, he said. You don't have to. Sophia. His voice softened, almost tender. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you what's happening. Against every shred of logic, I nodded. He guided me out the service exit to a black Rolls-Royce waiting in the shadows. The driver opened the door without a glance. Lucian helped me in, then slid in beside me. The cabin smelled of leather and his cologne. Where to, Miss Rain? The driver asked. I gave my modest address on the edge of the city. Lucian didn't comment. We rode in silence. I felt his gaze on me, heavy, burning. Why are you helping me? I finally asked. Because they touched what I consider mine. The answer was so simple, so absolute it stole my breath. I'm not yours. Not yet. He turned to me. Something dark and possessive flashed in his eyes. But you will be. We reached my building. He got out first, offered his hand again. This time I took it without hesitation. At the door he stopped. Tomorrow morning my man will pick you up. Tell me what you need. Doctor, lawyer, anything. He pressed a card into my palm. Call any time, day, night. Doesn't matter. Why are you doing this? He leaned in, lips brushing my ear. Because I've been watching you for 2 years, Sophia Rain, and tonight 7 men signed their own death warrants. By morning, they'll be gone. He walked away before I could speak. I stood clutching his card, feeling my old life shatter and reform into something unrecognizable. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying his words. By morning, they'll be gone. What did that mean? Vanished? Hidden? Or... No, I couldn't think about that. At 6 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Rain, a polite, icy male voice. Reese, Mr. Vaughn asked me to collect you. 20 minutes. But I didn't. Dial tone. Exactly 20 minutes later, the same Rolls waited outside. I walked out in jeans and a sweater. Anything clean. Reese was 40-ish, ex-military posture, scar running down one cheek. He opened the door without a word. We didn't head downtown. We drove to the lakefront to one of the city's most expensive towers, Aqua Tower. 97 floors of glass and steel. The elevator shot upward so fast my ears popped. Penthouse, of course. The doors opened directly into the apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Dawn spilling over the entire city. Marble floors, minimalist furniture, paintings I recognized instantly. Basquiat, Pollock. Lucian stood at the window in a white shirt with sleeves rolled up, coffee in hand. He turned when I stepped inside. You came, he said, as if it had ever been a question. Did I have a choice? A ghost of a smile. Always. Breakfast? He led me to the terrace. The table was set. Croissants, fresh berries, cheeses I couldn't pronounce. I sat, feeling wildly out of place. Turn on the news, Lucian told Reese. A morning anchor appeared on the massive screen. Shocking disappearance of 7 young men from prominent Chicago families. Among them, Senator James Harper's son, Ethan Harper. Police are not commenting, but sources say all 7 vanished between midnight and 4 a.m. The blood drained from my face. What did you do? I whispered. Lucian muted the TV and sat across from me. I kept my promise. Are they dead? Not yet. He sipped his coffee, perfectly calm. They're somewhere no one will ever find them. Alive. Their fate is up to you. Me? Say the word and some come back. Not all of them, of course. Ethan Harper, for instance, will never return to his old life. But the rest, he shrugged, your call. I stared at him, trying to process that this man was discussing 7 lives like dinner options. Why are you doing this? Because they touched you. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his, warm, strong. And because you belong to me, Sophia, I knew it the moment I saw you 2 years ago at Sotheby's. Blue dress, hair in a messy knot. You were selling a Monet. I paid $80 million just to have an excuse to speak to you. The memory hit me. That auction. A tall man in the back row who never took his eyes off me. I'd thought nothing of it. You've been following me? I've been studying you. He stood, walked around the table, crouched beside my chair so we were eye level. Your work, your devotion to your mother, the way you never give up no matter how many times life knocks you down. You're breathtaking, Sophia, and I'm done waiting. Waiting for what? He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, touch feather-light. For you to be mine. I'm not a thing you can own? No. His voice hardened. You're infinitely more precious. You're the one thing I want, and I always get what I want. He stood, pulled an envelope from his jacket and set it in front of me. Open it. My hands shook as I did. A check for $5 million, made out to me. And a letter on University of Chicago Cancer Center letterhead. Dear Miss Rain, we are pleased to inform you that all medical expenses for your mother, Maria Rain, have been covered in full by an anonymous charitable fund. All future treatments, including experimental protocols, are paid for in perpetuity. Tears came before I could stop them. Why? My voice cracked. Why would you do this? Lucian dropped to his knees in front of me, cupped my face. Because you'll never carry that weight alone again. He wiped my tears with his thumbs. From now on, anything you need, I give. Anything you want is yours. One condition. What? You stay here, with me. I should have said no. Should have run. This man was dangerous, controlling, and had just admitted to stalking me for 2 years. But the way he looked at me, like I was his oxygen, his salvation, shattered every objection. And if I want to leave, then you leave. He pulled me to my feet. But you won't, Sophia, because you feel it too. You have since the first second. We stood at the panoramic window. Chicago spread out below us. Millions of lights, millions of lives. Lucian came up behind me, hands on my shoulders. See this city? He murmured against my ear. It's at your feet now, because you're with me, and no one will ever lay a hand on you again. I closed my eyes, leaning into the heat of his body, the sheer force of him. It was wrong. All of it was wrong. But when he turned me around and kissed me, hard, hungry, claiming, I realized I didn't care about right. I wanted this, wanted him, the monster who killed for me, who made the impossible happen for my mother, who looked at me like I was the reason he breathed. The kiss deepened. His hand slid down my back, pulling me flush against him. I clutched his shirt, answering with a desperation I didn't know lived inside me. When we broke apart, we were both breathless. Stay, he said against my forehead. Say yes, Sophia. I looked into those gray eyes, cold to the world, warm only for me, and whispered, yes. His smile was triumphant and tender all at once. Mine, he breathed, kissing me again. And I understood. I just sold my soul to the devil. Maybe that was exactly what I'd wanted all along. A week passed. 7 days in a gilded cage on the 97th floor, every wish granted before I could voice it. A new wardrobe, Dior, Chanel, appeared in the closet. Breakfasts on the terrace, evenings by the fire while Lucian told me about the art on the walls, about worlds of power and beauty I'd only ever glimpsed. He was attentive, patient, never pushed, but every touch, every look said the same thing. Mine. My mother called daily, happier than she'd been in years. Doctors were thrilled with her progress. I lied, told her I'd gotten a huge bonus from Christie's. She believed because she needed to. I tried not to think about the 7 missing men until that night. Lucian came home late, tension in his shoulders. He poured whiskey, stared out at the city. "What's wrong?" I asked, coming up behind him. He looked at me for a long moment, then handed me a tablet. "Want to know where they are?" My pulse spiked. "They're alive?" "For now." He tapped the screen. Video feed. 7 separate cells. Concrete walls, bars, dim light. I recognized Ethan, unshaven, bruised, but breathing. The others looked the same. "Where is this?" "Columbia, one of my facilities." He sipped his drink. "They're safe, fed, cared for, but locked up." "How long?" "As long as you say." He turned to me. "This is your decision, Sophia. Say enough, and it ends however you want. Say, let them live, and they live. You hold their lives." I stared at the men who'd tried to break me, who'd laughed while I bled. And if I say enough, what happens? His voice dropped. They vanish, permanently. No trace, no questions. I waited for horror, for pleas for mercy. All I felt was cold, calm certainty. "Let them live," I said at last, "for now." Something flared in his eyes, pride, maybe satisfaction. "As you wish." He set the tablet aside and pulled me against him. "Do you know what this means?" "What?" "You've accepted it, my darkness, my methods, who I really am." I looked at that perfect, ruthless face and knew he was right. "Maybe I always was this person," I whispered. "I just didn't know it." His smile was predatory. "Then we're perfect for each other." He kissed me, and this time it wasn't gentle. It was raw, consuming, possessive. His hands roamed, claiming. I arched into him, nails digging into his shoulders. "Sophia," he growled, voice rough, "if we don't stop now, don't stop." Something snapped in him. He lifted me, my legs wrapped around his waist. My back hit the wall, his mouth on my neck. "Mine," he whispered between kisses. "Only mine. Forever." "Yes," I gasped, fingers tangled in his hair. "Yours." He carried me to the bedroom, and that night I fell and rose at the same time. When dawn crept through the windows, I lay in his arms, marked by his touch, and knew there was no going back. I was no longer the girl from the South Side. I was his, Lucian Vaughn's, monster and savior, and it didn't scare me at all. The next morning, Reese entered, face tight. "Mr. Vaughn, Senator Harper is holding a press conference. He's accusing you of kidnapping his son." Lucian didn't look up from his coffee. "Let him. He has no proof. He's hired private investigators, and he's contacted the FBI." Now Lucian looked up. "Interesting." He sipped. "Reese, find out which painting the senator wants most, then buy it. Price doesn't matter." I frowned. "Why?" Lucian's smile was ice. "To remind him who the god is here, darling. If he wants war, he'll get it. On my terms." 3 days later, the news exploded. Billionaire collector Lucian Vaughn purchases Picasso's Pink Nude for $120 million in a private sale, outbidding Senator James Harper, who had publicly declared his intent to acquire the work for the State Museum. The senator looked broken on every channel. Lucian hung the Picasso in the living room and said, "It's only worth that much because he wanted it more than life. Now it's yours." I stared at a canvas worth a small country's GDP and thought, this is what it means to be with him. The world is a chessboard, and he always wins. I no longer wanted to watch from the sidelines. I wanted to play beside him. 3 months later, 3 months of a life I couldn't have dreamed. Weekends in Paris, private after-hours tours of the Hermitage, dinners in restaurants with no menus, just whatever the chef felt inspired to create for us. But the center of it all was Lucian. Every morning I woke in his arms. Every night I fell asleep to the beat of his heart. He showed me a world where money was a tool, not a goal, where power was measured by a single look that could silence a room. And I fell, hopelessly, recklessly, forever. We were in Paris again, the Louvre, closed to the public just for us. We stood in front of the Mona Lisa while I tried to see what Da Vinci had seen. Sophia, I turned. Lucian was on one knee. Time stopped. In his hand, an open box, a sapphire the size of my thumbnail surrounded by diamonds, glowing like a piece of midnight sky. "This sapphire belonged to Catherine the Great," he said quietly. "I hunted it for 10 years, found it in a private collection in St. Petersburg, paid more than it was worth, but I knew one day I'd put it on the finger of the woman I'd love more than life." Tears blurred my vision. Sophia Rain. His gaze pinned me in place. "You changed me, taught me how to feel, showed me there's something beyond power and revenge worth living for. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life proving you're the best thing that ever happened to me." I couldn't speak, just nodded while tears fell. He slid the ring on. Perfect fit. "Yes," I finally managed. "Yes, Lucian, 1,000 times yes." He stood, pulled me into his arms, and we kissed beneath Mona Lisa's enigmatic smile. The most insane, most romantic proposal in history. And I was happy. Completely, utterly happy. He gave me 1 month to plan the wedding. I wanted small. He laughed. "No, the entire world will know you're mine. This will be the event people talk about for years." He wasn't kidding. Private estate on Lake Michigan. 120 guests. Chicago, New York, and LA elite. Black tie. White roses, crystal chandeliers, silk draping everything. My dress, custom Valentino, lace silk 3-meter train. I looked like a fairy tale princess, but every fairy tale has its dragon. The ceremony began at sunset. The lake glowed gold. I walked the white carpet to a string quartet, clutching white peonies. Lucian waited at the altar in black tie, and when our eyes met, the rest of the world vanished. The officiant began. "Dearly beloved," bam. Doors burst open. Senator James Harper stormed in, 10 armed guards behind him. Guests gasped. "Stop this ceremony!" The senator looked deranged, red-faced, hair wild. "This man kidnapped my son. Lucian Vaughn is a criminal. I demand his immediate arrest." Lucian didn't even turn. He kept his eyes on me, holding my hands, a faint smile on his lips. "Reese," he said quietly. Men rose from the guests, 20, 30, elegant tuxedos hiding the fact that they were Lucian's private security, armed, trained. They surrounded the senator's men in seconds. "Senator Harper," Lucian's voice was calm as death. "You're interrupting my wedding. Rude. Where is my son?" "Your son is safe." Lucian finally faced him. "You, however, are not, because I have something interesting. Documents, recordings, proof of how you've been laundering state money, taking pharmaceutical bribes. You're lying. Shall we check?" Lucian tapped his phone. Massive screens around the venue lit up. Bank transfers, audio files, photographs. The senator went white. "That's fabricated." "No," Lucian's voice cut like a blade. "It's the truth. And copies are already with the FBI, the state prosecutor, and every major paper. In 1 hour, it will be on every network." "You wouldn't dare." "I already did." Lucian stepped closer. "Your son lives. In fact, he'll be home tomorrow morning. But you, Senator? You're finished. Career, reputation, freedom, everything. And you know why?" He leaned in, voice low enough for only the front rows to hear, yet somehow the entire tent heard. "Because you raised a monster who touched my wife, and for that, you pay with everything you have." Real police, badges flashing, poured in. "Senator James Harper, you are under arrest for corruption, bribery, and abuse of office." Cuffs snapped on. The senator glared at Lucian with pure hatred and terror. This isn't over, Vaughn. Oh, it's over. Lucian turned his back on him and returned to me. He lifted my hands to his lips. For you, it's over. For us, he smiled. It's just beginning. The senator was dragged away. Slowly, guests began to clap. Hesitant at first, then thunderous. The officiant cleared his throat. So, shall we continue? Lucian Vaughn, do you take this woman? I do, Lucian cut in, eyes locked on mine. Forever. Sophia Rain, do you take this man? I do, I whispered, smiling through happy tears. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Lucian pulled me close and kissed me until my knees buckled. Deep, passionate, promising a lifetime of this. The applause became a roar. We were married, and the entire world now knew. No one touches Mrs. Vaughn. The reception was a whirlwind of dancing, toasts, congratulations. When we were finally alone in the estate's presidential suite, Lucian locked the door and pinned me against it. My wife, he whispered, lips on my neck. Mine. Forever. Forever, I echoed, fingers in his hair. He undressed me slowly, kissing every inch of skin he revealed. I trembled, tenderness and hunger all at once. You're exquisite, he rasped. Every time I look at you, I can't believe you're real. I'm real, I pulled him closer, and I'm yours, just like you're mine. That night, we claimed each other completely. Two souls, two darknesses fused. When dawn came, we lay tangled in silk sheets, and I knew this wasn't just a wedding. It was a declaration to the world. We are together. We are untouchable, and woe to anyone who tries to come between us. A year later, I sat in the study of our new Gold Coast mansion, signing the catalog for my first Sotheby's sale as lead curator, the Sophia Vaughn collection, my name, my vision, paintings I'd chosen, authenticated, presented to the world. Lucian had kept every promise. He didn't just give me a life, he gave me wings. My phone rang. Mom, Sophia, honey. Her voice shook with joy. The doctors said, full remission. I'm healthy, baby. I'm healthy. Tears of joy blurred my vision. Mom, that's incredible. It's all because of your husband. That man is a saint, Sophia. Hold on to him. I smiled at the sapphire on my finger. I am, Mom. I promise. When I hung up, Lucian walked in, came behind my chair, hands on my shoulders. Good news? The best. I leaned back into him. Mom's cancer-free. He kissed the top of my head. I know. Her doctor called this morning. Of course he did. Lucian always knew first. I have news too, I said softly. He stilled. I took his hand and placed it on my stomach. We're going to be parents. Silence. Absolute. Then he dropped to his knees beside my chair, face level with mine. You're pregnant? 8 weeks. I smiled through fresh tears. I found out yesterday. Wanted to be sure before I told you. He pressed his forehead to my belly, arms around my waist. Sophia, his voice broke. The first time I'd ever heard it waver. You've given me everything. Absolutely everything. We gave each other everything. I stroked his hair. This is our baby, Lucian, the proof of our love. He looked up. There were tears in his eyes. I'll be the best father, he whispered. I swear. Our child will grow up surrounded by love and safety. No one will ever hurt them. Her, I corrected gently. The doctor thinks it's a girl. A radiant smile broke across his face, open, unguarded joy. A daughter. He kissed my stomach reverently. Our little princess. That evening, he did something insane. He bought an island, a private Caribbean island, $40 million. Why do we need an island? I asked when he showed me the deed. Just in case, he shrugged. If the world ever gets tired of us, we'll have somewhere to escape. You, me, and our daughter, our own paradise. I looked at this impossible, beautiful, mad man and thought, This is happiness. Not the money, not the power. The fact that he'd buy an island just in case. 8 months later, labor was brutal. 18 hours. Lucian never left my side, held my hand, whispered encouragement, and then her first cry. "It's a girl," the midwife said, lifting a tiny, perfect pink bundle. "Healthy baby girl." They placed her on my chest, so small, so perfect. Dark hair like her father, my green eyes. "Hi, little one," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "We've been waiting for you." Lucian stared at us, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "What shall we name her?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Isabella," I said, meeting his eyes. "Bella, after your first painting, La Bella Principessa." He kissed me, then our daughter. "Isabella Maria Vaughn," he murmured. "Welcome to the world, princess." 2 years later, we stood on the balcony of the mansion. Bella slept upstairs, her little chest rising and falling, the most peaceful sight on earth. On the horizon, a warehouse burned in the industrial district. One of Lucian's rivals had tried to sabotage a real estate deal. It hadn't ended well for him. "Fire department handling it?" I asked, watching the orange glow. "Of course," Lucian said, arms around my waist. "No one gets hurt. Just a reminder." "Of what?" "That Chicago is ours, and no one takes what belongs to the Vaughn family." I leaned into him, absorbing his warmth, his strength. "You know what I'm thinking?" "Tell me." "That 3 years ago, I was just a girl trying to survive. And now," I gestured at the city lights, "I have everything. A husband who loves me, a healthy mother, a perfect daughter, the career I dreamed of, and a city at my feet." Lucian turned me to face him, cupped my cheeks. "You earned every second of it. You're the strongest, most extraordinary woman I've ever known. And you're the most dangerous, most loving man." I smiled. "My monster, my savior, my everything." He kissed me while distant sirens wailed, and I thought, this is my happily ever after, not in an ivory tower, not in some sanitized paradise, but here, in fire and passion, in darkness and light, with the man who would kill for me, who lives for me, who gave me the world, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. 7 years later. Bella stood in the grand foyer in a white dress with a blue sash, dark curls in braids. 5 years old, smart, fearless, utterly adored. A dark stain marred the marble floor. A man who'd tried to break in and steal documents for one of Lucian's competitors. Security had handled it quickly, permanently. Bella tilted her head, studying the body. "Daddy, why is the man sleeping on the floor?" Lucian crouched beside her, took her tiny hand. "Because he did a very bad thing, princess. He wanted to hurt Mommy, and what do we do to people who try to hurt Mommy?" Bella's brow furrowed in concentration. "We protect Mommy," she declared proudly. "Always." "That's right." He kissed her forehead. "We always protect the ones we love." I watched from the balcony above. My daughter, my husband, my family. Yes, it was a dark world. Danger waited around every corner. But it was our world, and we ruled it together. Sophia Vaughn, once a girl who only dreamed of surviving, now queen of an empire, mother, wife, a woman who found love in the arms of a monster. Bella ran to me, laughter echoing through marble halls. "Mommy, Daddy says we're going to the island this weekend." "We are, baby," I scooped her up. "All of us. Family adventure." Lucian climbed the stairs, wrapped his arms around us both. "My whole life," he whispered in my ear, "right here in my arms." "Mine too," I answered. "Forever." Outside, Chicago glittered. City of lights, ambition, shadows, and glory. Our city, our kingdom. And as long as we were together, nothing could ever break us. Sapphires and ashes, love and vengeance, light and darkness. This is our story, and it will never end.